Atlantic. If you have a fan of the Great Lakes in your family, or maybe that's you, well, we've got a lead on a great gift idea. It's a book all about the Great Lakes and the region. It takes a deep dive, there's your pun, into the history of the area. Maureen Dunphy, the book's author, joins us this morning to share more. Good morning, Maureen.
Good morning, Todd. Thank you for having me on.
We're so happy that you've joined us this morning. Thanks for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about the history? We're talking about the Anishinaabe tribe migrating from the Atlantic to our region, right? Is how it all starts in this book?
Yes. It was really interesting to me to discover how many people had been here before European explorers came into the region. We had Paleo-Indian people, Archaic people, woodland people, and actually the Anishinaabe people came from the East Coast. They came following a prophecy, Seven Fires prophecy, looking for food that grew on water, which ended up being what we know today as wild rice or manoomin. And it was a very long journey for them, but they arrived in this area around 1490.
It's amazing to learn about the people who were here before. As you mentioned, we tend to think of at least our area as a very strong Dutch area, very European area, and to hear about all of the things that were, all of the people that were here before that always fascinates me. You say it's a prophecy that they followed. And then you're talking about French control of the Great Lakes. That was a big deal for a while. I mean, it was kind of like the new France.
That was another real surprise to me, was that I didn't think at least of French explorers having been here for so long, but in fact, this was New France, along with other parts of the United States, for almost 250 years before it came under British control. And the French were very different in terms of how they approached the native peoples, which gave them some inroads in different ways. So they tended to work with the Native Americans, of which there were about over 24 different tribes in the area when they arrived. But they worked with them as partners as opposed to trying to take control. And of course, the fur trade was a big deal then, but also later there was a lot of Jesuit missionaries who came also collecting souls. So it was a long period of time, much longer than I had ever expected when I started doing the research.
Already, I want to dive into this book. Now let's talk about pirates. I know that there's a pirate presence on the Great Lakes. We hear from time to time about shipwrecks. What did you find?
Well, shipwrecks, yes. I mean, there were thousands of shipwrecks on the Great Lakes, and pirates could, get the plunder that washed up on shore. But what was more surprising to me was that there were actually pirates pursuing vessels, usually that carried timber. And that it happened so recently. So in 1908, Dan Seavey took control of a schooner that was carrying cedar posts from Grand Haven and was pursued across Lake Michigan to Chicago. Eventually, when he could not find a market for those cedar posts, he returned to his Michigan home and was apprehended. That is actually the only pirate that was captured and charged.
Amazing stuff. You must have done years of research, it seems like. And really quickly, talk about the degree of which human engineering created the Great Lakes route from Duluth to the East Coast.
So we think now about ocean-going vessels being able to make their way into the St. Lawrence from the Atlantic and go all the way as far as, say, Duluth. But that's a relatively new development, and some of the older viewers may remember that between 1954 and 1959, Canada and the United States worked together to finish the project of the St. Lawrence Seaway, which allowed for a lot of that to happen. But many other things had to happen before that. So there were lighthouses and lightships, there were beacons and buoys, there were foghorns and bells, long before the major engineering feats started to make this a possibility, which would be things like locks and canals, and then the amount of dredging that had to happen.
Maureen,
in some
we could
cases
talk to
for
you the rest
St.
of the
Lawrence Seaway
morning
to
about
happen.
this. This is just amazing stuff, but unfortunately we're running short on time. I want to make sure I get this information out though, the book all about the Great Lakes. Sorry to cut you short, Maureen. It can be bought at your local independent bookstores. Schuler's got it, Barnes & Noble has it, online, wherever books are sold. If what Maureen has been talking about interests you or someone you know, what a great stocking stuffer or holiday gift. All about the Great Lakes by author Maureen Dunphy. We'll be right back.